The British people are about to have practiced upon them a trick even cruder and more shameless than that by which they were cheated out of their inheritance of parliamentary self-government in the first place when we acceded to the European Economic Community.
We fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. I watched the BBC coverage of the voting of the UK part of the European elections. That is the piece that was being broadcast on the BBC Sunday night. I won't go into the exact way I watched it, because that might be a little bit awkward. But nevertheless, I watched the BBC coverage, not the world feed, the UK feed. And I have to tell you this, I was both stunned and disgusted by the utter distortion some of the panel members who were invited to speak about the incoming results. How on earth can you, with any degree of honesty, arrive at any other conclusion that the British people have spoken clearly and unambiguously on this matter? Yet, even though it beggars belief, some of these panellists tried to play numerical gymnastics with the figures. That's the only way I can describe it. An example was that if you put all the parties who want to remain together, it would mean the Remainers would actually have a majority. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't how the system was working, because they weren't using first past the post. They were using the European proportional representation for a start, so that didn't apply. Secondly, they were lumping all the people who weren't Brexit, in other words, all the people who weren't in the Brexit Party, as Remainers. Again, not true. Then they talk about the SNP in Scotland, and they show a map. There's a map on the BBC website, on the UK BBC website, and it shows the whole of Scotland looks to be a colour of yellow, which I think is the colour for the SNP, the Scottish National Party. But look under the surface. Their views are about as logical as wanting a second vote on Brexit because they weren't happy with the result of the first one. I'll give you one example I saw reported live. It was on the southwest region, which is an enormous region of Britain. And Brexit, the Brexit Party, got 611,000 votes. The second place party, the Liberal Democrats, got 385,000. Now, the Brexit Party got 3 seats, and the Liberals got 2. So that actually means the Liberals got 2/3 of what the Brexit Party got in seats, for nearly half as many voters. No wonder the Liberals in the UK love so much proportional representation, because it distorts their importance. Think about this. In this region alone, a party that received half as many votes as the top party receives 2/3 of the top party seats. And it's far worse in Scotland, as I alluded to a moment ago. The SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party, won 50% of the votes, approximately. The seats pretty much all went to them. But in fact, if you look further into those figures, you will see the vast majority of the regions in Scotland, Brexit Party was in second place, but only got 1 seat. So the way the seats were proportioned across the UK clearly was unequal, and in no way reflects the true feeling of the British population as a whole. If the votes had been cast area by area based on first past the post, with the exception of Scotland, who have been bought and paid for by the EU, it would have been a complete wipeout. The main political parties, apart from London, which is always Liberal of course, that's Liberal with a small l, which believes they always know best, even though most of the UK problems always seem to stem from that area of the UK. However, if you watch the European officials out of Brussels, they believe it's business as usual. I don't think so. They don't even want to admit, and I quote, populist anti-EU parties top the polls in Italy and France. Marine Le Pen's National Party and Italian leader Matteo Salvini Lega both won, winning the most votes. Now, the BBC protect their content very carefully, more so than Sky and more so than Fox. So it's very difficult to get clips unless you happen to record it live. But I managed to find something on an English feed of France 24, and here's that clip.
The likelihood of a no-deal Brexit. Clearly, a lot of people in the UK seeing this as a referendum on Brexit, putting their support behind Nigel Farage, who is openly saying that he wants the UK to leave the EU without a formal deal on October 31st. How likely do you think that is?
Well, if I look at the figures, 32% pro-Brexit means 68% not in this camp, first thing. Second thing, I think that a no-deal Brexit is a catastrophe and would not solve anything. Nothing. At the end of the day, you will have to solve the problem of the contribution to the budget. You will have to solve the problem of EU citizens in the UK and British citizens on the EU territory. And you will have to solve the problem of the Irish border. And at any stage after a no-deal Brexit, we will have to discuss this with the UK from an EU standpoint for the very simple reason that both sides will be interested in a trade agreement.
Because a no-deal Brexit would obviously hurt the UK, but it would hurt the EU as well. It's absolutely not in the EU's interest, is it, to allow this to come to pass? The thinking among lots of pro-Brexit voices is that the EU will be forced into some sort of a compromise deal. We can afford.
Look at the figures. Our trade, EU 27 with the UK, is about 6% of the totality of the external trade. And what is the choice for the UK consumers? Where will they buy their cars? Where will they buy their food? Where will they buy their machinery? From the continent mostly, but the price will be higher because they will have to pay additional taxes, customs duties, etc. It is the most stupid situation one can ever imagine in this world. So there is no benefit for anybody, but the British side will lose much more than the EU side.
So did you hear that there? A no-deal Brexit is a catastrophe and would solve nothing. We can afford to be awkward, basically, is what they're saying, because the UK trade only represents 6%. So the EU doesn't need the UK. So here's my question to that EU, whatever he was, advisor, minister, who the heck knows with those people, their unelected body. Here's my question. Why are you fighting so hard to keep the UK in Europe if it doesn't matter if it's only 6%? The answer is a simple one, because the UK is paying a massive amount of the EU budget. That's why they want the UK to remain. The UK pays in considerably more than it gets out. It is used as a piggy bank for the failing part of Europe. And of course that includes Scotland, which is an economic basket case now, or soon to be, because it's being run by SNP, Scottish Nationalist Party, which gives away everything because they get everything given to them by the Westminster government. What a ridiculous situation that Scotland is getting more back than it pays in. Sounds familiar. I'm going to play you two clips now. One is from Nigel Farage at his acceptance speech, and the second clip will be Nigel Farage being interviewed about the result.
Never before in British politics has a new party launched just 6 weeks ago topped the polls in a national election. The reason, of course, is very obvious. We voted to leave in a referendum. We were supposed to do so on March the 29th, and we haven't. There's a huge message here, massive message here, The Labour and Conservative parties could learn a big lesson from tonight, though I don't suppose that they actually will. The new date is the 31st of October. We in the Brexit Party have got men and women of considerable business experience. We want to be part of that negotiating team. We want to take responsibility for what's happening, and we're ready to do so. I hope the government is listening. I have to say this: if we don't leave on October the 31st, then the scores you've seen for the Brexit Party today will be repeated in a general election, and we are getting ready for it. Thank you.
Well, a big win for the Brexit Party, that's very clear. Terrible night for the Conservative Party. But look at Labour as well. Look at what the Brexit Party's done to Labour in Wales, in the northeast of England. So, this is a big, big message, big wake-up call to Westminster. Will they listen? We've got a deadline of the 31st of October, all right? That is the date upon which we're supposed to leave the European Union. That's in 5 months' time. And what we're saying is we've got a mandate now. We demand to be part of that negotiating team to get this country ready to leave, whatever the circumstance. Firstly, we're going to be in Brussels. Secondly, we've got some very high-caliber businessmen and businesswomen used to putting deals together. We've got to get on with this.
So there you have it. I wanted to play those clips because I want you to understand what's really going on in the UK. Britain has lost its way, unfortunately. It's a bit like the deep state in the United States. They are trying every trick in the book to keep Britain in the EU. Why? That's the question we should be asking. Why? If they contribute so little to the overall income and GDP of the EU, why is it so important for them to remain in the EU? Something doesn't add up, does it? Now, the final point I wanted to pick up on was at the end of Nigel Farage's acceptance speech. Let me just play that for you again.
If we don't leave on October the 31st, then the scores you've seen for the Brexit Party today will be repeated in a general election, and we are getting ready for it. Thank you.
So you heard it, didn't you? A clear plan for the Brexit Party to enter as a general election party. This is not a one-issue party. It was very subtle, right at the end, but there was a clear message to the mainstream media, which was almost ignored. The Brexit Party is going to enter candidates into the general election. That could well be a political game changer in the UK and perhaps elsewhere in Europe. And who knows, beyond. Keep listening to us. We will try and keep you updated on what's going on with Brexit and the Brexit Party itself. The political waves that will come out of the UK should never be underestimated. There are many other parties with single issues in the UK. The upcoming general election in the UK, I think, as do many others, will be a total game changer. I think it'll be as big an event in the UK as the Rivers of Blood speech from Enoch Powell. Britain is on a knife edge of civil unrest. They try and deny it, but it's undeniable. The British public have had enough. Just like a coffee pot on the stove, it's just about to boil over. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, and email. We are also on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a twist, and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio. That's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. And you can now hear a weekend review of our podcasts on WHBJ DB. News Talk Radio. Join us and many others, and you can find all our podcasts and Morning Moments at aradio.wordpress.com. Click on the Morning Moments tab.